The forgotten battlefield, 800 words. The sun was low over the ruined land, casting long shadows across broken stone and rusted metal. The air was heavy with silence, as if the battlefield itself remembered the screams of the fallen. A young man named Daniel walked slowly, his boots crunching against shards of glass and forgotten weapons. He was not a soldier, not an explorer, only a traveler who had lost his way in the endless wilderness. Yet something in this place pulled him forward, as if invisible hands were guiding him deeper into the ruins. The battlefield stretched far, scattered with skeletons of strange machines and armor that did not belong to Earth. The sight made him uneasy, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He felt as if thousands of eyes were watching him from the shadows of the broken walls. Every gust of wind sounded like whispers, faint and strange, carrying words he could not understand. He thought of turning back, but something in his chest told him he must keep walking. Then he saw it. Lying in the dust, half buried among shattered stones, was a simple stick. It looked ordinary, no different than any branch one might find in a forest. But here, in the middle of a dead battlefield, it fell out of place. Daniel frowned, hesitated, and then bent down to pick it up. The moment his fingers touched the wood, the ground shook beneath his feet. Dust rose into the air, and a deep sound echoed through the ruins, like the beat of a giant heart. Daniel's eyes widened, and he almost dropped the stick, but something made him hold on tighter. The stick felt warm, almost alive, and faint lines of glowing symbols began to crawl across its surface. He gasped, staring in disbelief. The stick that looked so plain a moment ago now pulsed with strange light. It was as if the relic had been waiting, sleeping, until he arrived. The silence of the battlefield broke, and shadows moved at the edges of the ruins. Figures appeared, tall and armored, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. Alien warriors, their bodies scarred with marks of countless battles, stepped forward slowly. Their weapons glimmered, sharp and deadly, but they did not raise them. Instead, they stopped, staring at the stick in his hand, and then they bowed. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. His mind raced. He wanted to speak, but no words came. The warriors lowered their heads in unison, their voices rising in a whisper. "The lost one has returned," they said, the words heavy with awe and fear. Daniel froze, confused. He shook his head quickly. "No, I think you are mistaken. I am not who you think I am," he said, but his voice trembled. The warriors ignored his protest, their eyes fixed on the glowing relic. Some fell to their knees, pressing fists to their chests in respect. Others whispered among themselves in a language Daniel could not understand. But one word kept repeating over and over, "returned, returned, returned." The sound of it made his skin crawl. Daniel's breath grew shallow. He felt trapped in a story too big for him. He wanted to throw the stick away, to escape from their gaze. But the stick would not leave his hand. His fingers refused to let go. It pulsed like a heartbeat, syncing with his own. He wondered if he had been cursed the moment he touched it. One warrior, taller than the rest, stepped forward, his armor etched with golden marks. He removed his helmet, revealing a face lined with scars and glowing yellow eyes. He looked at Daniel with a mix of fear and hope, as if staring at a ghost. "Do you not remember us, lost one?" the warrior asked, his voice deep like thunder. Daniel shook his head, his voice barely a whisper. "I did not know you. I did not know any of this." The warrior studied him, then bowed his head even lower. "It does not matter. The relic has chosen you. It cannot be wrong," he said. Daniel wanted to scream that they were wrong, that he was just a normal human. But deep inside, he felt a strange pull, like a memory he could not reach. Something about this place felt familiar, even though he had never been here before. The ruins seemed to close in around him. The whispers in the wind grew louder. He looked down at the stick, glowing brighter in his hand. And for the first time, he wondered if it truly was only a stick. Perhaps it was a key, perhaps it was a curse, and perhaps, just perhaps, it had been waiting for him all along. As the warriors knelt before him, Daniel's heart pounded with dread and wonder. The battlefield was no longer silent. It was alive, watching him, waiting for what he would do next. And in that moment, he realized his life had changed forever. He had picked up more than a stick. He had picked up a destiny. And the warriors whispered again, "The Lost One has returned." The legend of the Lost One. The warriors' voices echoed in the ruins, their whispers weaving into the wind like a chant. Daniel stood frozen, the strange glowing stick heavy in his grip, his mind screaming that it was impossible, that this was madness. Yet the sight before him was undeniable. Armored figures bowing to him, their eyes filled with awe and fear. Every instinct told him to run, to drop the cursed thing and flee, but his legs would not move, his hand would not open. The relic clung to him like a living chain. The tall warrior with golden markings spoke again, his scarred face solemn and unreadable. "You have returned, just as it was written," he said, his voice deep, heavy with meaning. Daniel shook his head furiously. "I am not whoever you think I am. I don't know this place, I don't know you," he said, his words trembling. The warrior raised his gaze slowly, his yellow eyes glowing faintly. "Perhaps your memory has not awakened yet, but it will. The relic does not lie." Another warrior stepped forward, her armor darker, her voice sharper. "He looks weak. He does not even know our tongue. How can he be the Lost One?" she asked, suspicion clear in her tone. The golden-marked warrior silenced her with a gesture. "Doubt all you wish, but the relic burns any false hand. Only he can carry it," he said, pointing to the glowing stick in Daniel's grip. Daniel stared at the relic, panic growing. He wanted to believe it was a mistake, that this was a trick, but deep inside a quiet voice whispered, "What if it is true?" He forced the thought away. "No, this is not me. I am just a man. I don't belong here," he muttered, more to himself than to them. The golden-marked warrior straightened, his armor glinting faintly in the dying light. "Then listen, and you will understand," he said, his voice lowering into something that felt like a ritual. He began to speak of the past, of a war so old that even stars had shifted since then. There had been a leader, a warrior greater than all others, a human who had come from the void beyond the stars. They called him the Lost One, the Chosen, the Stranger King, who carried a weapon unlike any other. That weapon, the warrior claimed, was the very relic Daniel now held in his hand. Daniel listened in disbelief, his breath shallow, his fingers tightening around the glowing wood. According to the legend, the Lost One had united tribes that were once enemies, forging them into a single unstoppable force. With his weapon, he brought victory after victory. His enemies fell, and even the heavens trembled at his rise. But as his power grew, so did the whispers of betrayal. Some said he turned against his own, others that he sought to become a god. Whatever the truth, his reign ended in blood and fire. The Lost One vanished on this very battlefield, his weapon lost, his name erased, but the prophecy remained. It was said that when the relic returned, so would he, not as a man, but as destiny itself. Daniel's chest tightened as the warrior's words sank into him. How could he, an ordinary man, be linked to such a tale of gods and kings, of betrayal and ruin? He shook his head, his voice small. "That is just a story, a myth. It has nothing to do with me." But even as he said it, the relic pulsed in his hand, glowing brighter with every denial. The warriors noticed, their whispers growing louder. He resists, yet the relic answers. He resists, yet it binds. The female warrior stepped forward again, her eyes sharp like blades. "If he truly is the returned one, let him prove it. The legend says the relic will awaken when danger rises. Let us test him," she demanded. Daniel's stomach dropped, his voice cracked. "Test me? I don't even know what this thing does," he said, but no one seemed to care. The golden-marked warrior nodded gravely. "It is true. The relic shows its power in battle, and only then." He looked at Daniel with piercing eyes. "Do not fear. If you are false, the relic will destroy you quickly. If you are true, it will guide you." Daniel felt cold sweat run down his back. His heart raced as he realized what they meant. They would throw him into danger, into combat, and let the relic decide his fate. He wanted to scream, to refuse, to beg them to let him go, but the warriors' faces told him there was no choice. They had already judged him, already decided that destiny had returned in human flesh. The whispers grew louder, echoing in his skull. Returned, returned, returned. Daniel's knees weakened. His chest felt heavy. The relic's glow spread up his arm like fire under his skin. The battlefield around him seemed to shift, as if the ruins themselves leaned closer to listen. In the distance, the sky cracked with thunder, though no storm was near. The golden-marked warrior turned his face upward, his voice almost reverent. The prophecy stirs, the test begins soon. Daniel clutched the relic tighter, his voice trembling. I don't want this. I never asked for this. But the relic did not care, the warriors did not care, the battlefield did not care. The legend of the lost one had been awakened, and now it demanded truth. Daniel realized with a chill that his life was no longer his own, whether he was ready or not. He had stepped into a story written long before his birth. And the first test of that story was about to begin. The rival's challenge. The ruins were not silent for long. For word of the relics, awakening spread faster than fire in dry grass. Daniel did not understand how, but whispers seemed to travel through the stones, through the air itself, carrying news to places unseen. By the next dawn, another group of warriors approached the battlefield, their banners torn, their armor darker, their faces marked with war paint. They belonged to a rival clan, and they came not with reverence, but with rage. The leader of this group was a massive figure, his armor jagged, his eyes burning like coals. He carried a great blade on his back, heavy and scarred from many battles. When he saw Daniel standing among the golden-marked warriors' clan, the relic glowing faintly in his hand, the warlord's lips curled into a cruel smile. So, it is true, he growled, his voice loud enough to shake dust from the stones. The relic has awakened, and you claim the returned one has come again. The golden-marked warrior stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. He does not claim. The relic itself has chosen him. The rival laughed, a sound sharp and bitter. Chosen? That weak creature? That pale stranger who does not even know your tongue? You kneel to an impostor. Daniel's stomach twisted, his throat dry. He wanted to deny everything, to throw the relic away, but it pulsed in his grip like a heartbeat, refusing to let him be free. The rival's eyes narrowed. If he is true, then let him prove it in combat. Let him face me. The golden-marked warrior frowned, knowing the danger, but the rival clan shouted in unison, demanding the trial. Daniel stepped back, panic in his chest. No, I can't fight. I've never fought anyone, he stammered, but his words were drowned by the growing roar of the crowd. The female warrior from before smirked coldly. The prophecy demands proof. If he is false, the relic will consume him. If he is true, it will save him. Daniel shook his head, his voice cracking. I don't want this, I never asked for this. But no one listened. Destiny had no patience for fear. The rival warlord drew his blade, its edge glowing faintly with strange energy. He slammed it against the ground, sparks flying, his voice booming. Stand and face me, imposter, or admit you are a coward. Daniel's knees trembled. His hands shook, but the relic burned brighter, forcing him to raise it as if it had a will of its own. The crowd fell silent. Waiting, the battlefield itself seemed to hold its breath. The rival charged, his massive frame moving faster than Daniel thought possible. Daniel raised the relic weakly, expecting death, but in that instant the stick flared with light. It stretched, reshaping itself, the wood twisting into a spear, ancient and deadly. Daniel gasped as his body moved on its own, the spear guiding his arms, pulling him into a stance he had never learned. The rival's blade struck, sparks exploding, and somehow Daniel blocked it. The warriors cried out, some in shock, others in awe. Daniel's eyes widened, his breath ragged. He could feel strength flowing through him that was not his own. The rival snarled, striking again and again, each blow enough to shatter stone. But the spear answered every strike. It was as if the relic remembered battles long past, and Daniel was only its vessel. His hands moved, his feet shifted, each motion perfect, precise, beyond anything he should know. The rival's anger grew, his voice roaring. "You are nothing, you cannot be him." He swung his blade with furious strength, but the relic turned the force back on him, sending him stumbling. Daniel stared in horror at his own body, moving like a warrior he had never been. He felt as though he was watching through a window, a stranger controlling his limbs. The whispers grew louder, filling the battlefield. Returned, returned, returned. The rival fell to one knee, his blade buried in the ground, his breath heavy, sweat running down his scarred face. Daniel held the spear at his throat, his own arms trembling, his heart screaming to stop, to drop the weapon. The rival glared up at him, rage and disbelief in his eyes. "If you are truly the returned one, then kill me. Prove your claim with blood." The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the strike, waiting for prophecy to be sealed. Daniel's chest tightened, his breath shaking. The spear's tip glowed brighter, urging him forward. But he pulled back, his voice breaking. "No, I won't kill you." Gasps erupted from both clans. The rival sneered. "Weakness, only weakness," he spat. But the golden-marked warrior stepped forward, his voice thunderous. "No, not weakness, mercy. The lost one never showed mercy. Perhaps this is proof enough." The rival staggered to his feet, his face twisted in rage, but he did not strike again. He spat on the ground and growled. "This is not over, imposter. The war is coming, and you will not survive it." With that, he turned and left, his clan following, their eyes filled with anger and doubt. The battlefield fell into silence again, the whispers fading, but the weight of what had happened pressed heavy on Daniel's chest. He looked at the spear in his hand, its glow fading back to a dim pulse. He whispered to himself, "That wasn't me, I wasn't in control." The golden-marked warrior placed a hand on his shoulder, his eyes solemn. "The relic remembers, it fights through you, whether you will it or not." Daniel swallowed hard, fear and dread mixing with confusion. For the first time, he wondered if he was truly himself anymore, or if the lost one was waking inside him, ready to take his place. Whispers of betrayal. Night fell over the ruins, the fires of the rival clan fading into the distance. But the battlefield did not rest. Daniel sat apart from the warriors, the spear laid across his knees, its faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. He could not sleep. His mind replayed the duel again and again, the way his body had moved, the way the relic had guided him. He knew those strikes had not been his, they belonged to someone else, someone long dead, someone the warriors called the Lost One. The golden-marked warrior watched him from the shadows, his gaze heavy but calm, as if guarding both Daniel and the relic. The others kept their distance, whispering among themselves, their voices low but sharp. Daniel could not hear their words, but he felt their doubt, their fear, their suspicion. Some had bowed to him. Others had only bowed because they feared the relic, not because they believed. At last, Daniel's ears caught fragments of their whispers carried by the wind. "He is too soft," one voice hissed. "He showed mercy. The Lost One would never spare an enemy." Another replied, "Perhaps he is not the Lost One reborn, but a vessel, a puppet. The relic is using him." A third voice lowered to almost nothing. "Or worse, perhaps he is only a false shadow, and if we follow him, he will lead us to ruin." The words stung Daniel like blades. He clenched his fists, his heart heavy. He had not asked for this, had not chosen it. Yet now he was trapped in their legend, judged by standards he did not understand. He wanted to stand and tell them he was no king, no savior, but fear held him still. If he admitted weakness, would they cast him out, or kill him, and take the relic by force? Later, when the fire burned low, the female warrior approached, her face hard in the flickering light. "You should know," she said coldly. "Not all among us believe you. Some already plan against you." Daniel looked up, startled. "Plan against me? Why?" "I've done nothing," he said, his voice trembling. She narrowed her eyes. "That is the problem. The prophecy speaks of a conqueror, a ruler of fire and blood, but you show kindness, mercy, hesitation. Many see this as weakness, and weakness invites betrayal." Daniel swallowed hard, his chest tight. "And what about you, do you believe?" he asked carefully. Her lips curled into a thin smile. "Not of comfort, but of challenge. Belief does not matter. Only strength does. If you live through the trials ahead, then you will be worth following. If you fail, the relic will choose another." With that, she turned away, her steps sharp against the stone, leaving him colder than before. As the night deepened, Daniel's thoughts grew darker, the whispers in his head blending with the whispers of the clan. He remembered the rival's words, "Kill me, prove yourself with blood." He had refused, had shown mercy, but what if mercy was not a virtue here? What if it was a crime? What if by sparing one enemy, he had already doomed himself? The relic pulsed in his lap, faint but steady, and for a moment Daniel thought he heard a voice inside his mind. Not his own, deeper, sharper, ancient. "Mercy is weakness. Mercy is death. Strike and rule." Daniel's breath caught, his heart racing. He gripped the spear tighter, whispering, "No, that's not me. That's not what I believe." But the relic's glow did not fade. It only brightened, as if mocking him. Far off, hidden in the shadows beyond the firelight, figures moved. Daniel did not see them, but the golden-marked warrior did, his hand resting on his sword, his eyes narrowing. He had heard the whispers too. He knew betrayal was already stirring. Not all of his warriors would wait for prophecy to prove itself. Some would take matters into their own hands. That night, as Daniel finally drifted into restless sleep, he dreamed of fire. He saw himself standing over a field of bodies, the relic blazing like a sun in his hand. The warriors knelt before him, but their faces were not reverent. They were terrified. And above their whispers, he heard the voice again, deep and commanding. "You are not Daniel. You are me." He woke with a start, sweat on his skin, his breath ragged, the spear glowing faintly beside him. The golden-marked warrior stepped forward from the shadows, his voice low. "You dream of him, don't you?" Daniel stared. Unable to answer, his silence was enough. The warrior's face was grim. "Be careful, traveler. The line between you and the lost one may not be as strong as you think." The fire crackled. The whispers carried through the dark, and Daniel realized with dread that his greatest danger was not the rival clan. It was not the battlefield or even the prophecy. It was the people kneeling beside him, the ones who called him leader but spoke betrayal in the dark. The warriors bowed to him by day, but by night, some already sharpened their blades. And in his heart, Daniel feared that when the time came, it would not be his enemies who struck first, but his own allies, the awakening of power. The morning came heavy with tension. The warriors gathered in silence, their eyes sharp, their whispers sharper. Daniel walked among them, feeling the weight of every stare. He could sense their doubt, their fear, and the unspoken question in their minds. Was he truly the returned one, or only a stranger holding a cursed relic? He wished he had an answer, but the truth was he felt just as lost as they did. The golden-marked warrior remained close to him, speaking little, only watching, protecting. The female warrior stood further away, her expression unreadable, her eyes cold, as though waiting for Daniel to fall. Even the air seemed restless, the battlefield alive with invisible voices, the ruins humming with an energy he could not understand. Daniel felt caught between worlds, between the ordinary man he had always been and the figure of legend they believed him to be. As the day stretched on, the warriors prepared to move. They spoke of threats beyond the rival clan, of creatures that lurked in the wild lands, things born from war and twisted by the old fires. Daniel listened, his chest tightening, each word only reminding him that he did not belong here, that he was unready. But the relic pulsed in his hand, stronger than before, as if it knew what was coming. That night, as the warriors camped, Daniel sat apart again, the relic resting across his lap. He stared at it in the firelight, its surface no longer looking like wood, but like living metal, shifting with faint patterns of light. He touched it gently, and the glow spread into his skin, racing up his arm. His breath caught. The world around him seemed to blur, and then vision struck his mind. He saw battles he had never fought, fields burning, warriors crying out in voices he did not know but somehow understood. He felt strength in his limbs, speed in his movements, knowledge of weapons he had never touched. It was as if the relic was pouring another life into him, memories not his own. He gasped, clutching his head, the voices of the dead echoing inside him. The golden-marked warrior appeared, kneeling beside him, his voice steady. "The relic is awakening in you. It shows you what you must become." Daniel shook his head violently, his eyes wide with fear. "No, these are not my memories. This is not my life. I don't want this." The warrior's gaze hardened. "It does not matter what you want. The relic chooses, and when it chooses, there is no escape." Daniel pushed the relic away, but his hand would not let go. His fingers refused, as if fused to it. That night the whispers grew louder, not from the warriors, but from within his own mind. Voices of long-dead fighters, chanting, calling, urging him to rise. He dreamed again, this time not of fire, but of himself standing on a throne of broken blades. The relic in his hand shone like a sun, and endless armies bowed before him. Their voices thundered, "Lost one, returned one, ruler." He woke in a sweat, his chest heaving, the relic burning hot in his grip. And for the first time, he felt something else, power, raw and heavy, flowing through his veins like lightning. He raised the relic and felt the world shift. Stones around him trembled. Sparks lit the air. The warriors stirred from their rest in shock. They stared at him, some in awe, some in terror. The female warrior stepped forward, her eyes wide. "He has begun to awaken," she whispered, her voice almost reverent but edged with fear. Daniel looked down at the relic, his heart racing. "This isn't me. I don't want this," he muttered, but his voice was drowned by the murmurs of the crowd. The golden-marked warrior placed his hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You may not want it, but destiny has no mercy." Daniel felt the truth in those words, though it terrified him. From that day, the relic's bond grew stronger. Daniel no longer had to think about how to move or fight. The relic guided his steps, his strikes, his defenses, but every time it did, he felt less like himself, more like someone else, a stranger living inside his skin, a ghost from a time long buried. The whispers among the warriors grew, some saying he was the savior, others saying he was the destroyer reborn. Daniel heard their words in the dark, their voices filled with both hope and fear. He realized with dread that they did not follow him because of who he was, they followed the relic. And the relic was changing him, shaping him, breaking him into someone he did not know. One night, standing alone at the edge of camp, he stared at the stars above. He whispered to himself, "Am I Daniel, or am I only a shadow of the lost one?" The relic pulsed in reply, its glow wrapping around his hand, its power rising, and deep inside, Daniel felt a truth he could not escape. The awakening had begun, and there was no turning back, the war of return. The days that followed were heavy with unease. The rival clan did not remain silent. They spread word across the wastelands that the returned one had risen. Some called it blasphemy, others called it destiny, and the whispers grew into a storm that could no longer be ignored. Daniel found himself at the center of it, unwilling and unready, yet chained to the relic that glowed brighter with each passing day. He had not chosen this path, but now armies marched because of him. The golden-marked warrior warned him, "The rival clans gather. They do not trust you. They fear you, and fear always leads to war." Daniel's chest tightened, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I'm not their savior. I can't lead them." The warrior's gaze was steady. The relic does not care for your fear. It will push you into the fire, whether you wish it or not. And Daniel knew, deep inside, that he spoke the truth. When the first attack came, it was sudden. The rival clan descended like a tide of black steel. Their war cries shook the battlefield, their blades glowing with strange energy, their eyes filled with rage. Daniel froze at the sight, his body trembling, his mind screaming to run. But the relic pulsed, hot and alive, forcing him to raise it, and once again his limbs moved with deadly precision. The clash was thunderous, steel against steel, sparks raining across the ruins. The warriors of his side fought with loyalty and desperation, but they looked to Daniel at every moment, waiting for proof that their faith was not in vain. The rival warlord came again, his blade carving through the crowd like a storm, his voice booming. "Imposter, today you die." Daniel raised the relic, the spear bursting into radiant light, and the two collided with a force that shook the stones beneath their feet. Every strike carried the weight of history. Every clash echoed with whispers of the past. Daniel's arms burned with strength that was not his. His body obeyed a rhythm older than he was. He fought like a warrior he had never been. Every motion perfect, every strike guided by memory, not his own. But with each moment, fear gnawed at him, fear that he was no longer Daniel, but a shadow of the lost one come to life again. The battle raged around them. Warriors fell, the earth shook, the sky seemed to darken. Daniel's spear flared brighter, its power surging, and for an instant he felt unstoppable, untouchable. The rival warlord staggered under the force of his strikes, his eyes wide, his voice filled with fury. "This is not you. This is him. You are nothing but his puppet." The word struck Daniel's heart harder than any blade, because deep inside he feared they were true. At that moment, a strange silence fell, as if the battlefield itself paused. Daniel saw flashes in his mind. The lost one standing where he stood, armies kneeling, worlds burning, rivers of fire. He gasped, shaking his head, whispering, "No, that's not me. I won't be him." The relic burned hotter, pressing against his will, demanding he surrender, demanding he embrace its power fully. The golden-marked warrior shouted over the chaos, "Do not lose yourself. Fight as you, not as him." Daniel's breath came ragged, his grip on the spear tightening. The rival lunged again, blade raised high, but Daniel twisted, striking with a move not from the relic, but from his own instinct. The spear's light exploded, throwing the rival back across the field, crashing into the ruins. The warriors around him cried out, their voices filled with awe. The returned one, the returned one. But Daniel felt no triumph, only dread, his chest heavy, his mind torn. The relic pulsed with satisfaction, as if feeding on the battle, as if hungering for more. Daniel looked at it in his hands, glowing like a living flame, and he whispered to himself, "If I keep fighting like this, I'll lose who I am." The rival warlord staggered to his feet, broken but still alive, his voice filled with hatred. "This is not the end. Your war is only beginning, and it will consume you." With his clan retreating, the battlefield quieted, but the silence was not peace. It was the stillness before a greater storm. The golden-marked warrior stood beside Daniel, his face grim. "You see now, the prophecy will not be denied, and war has only begun." Daniel lowered the relic, his body trembling, his heart whispering the truth he did not want to admit. This was not just a fight between clans. It was a war tied to his very soul. A war not only of steel and blood, but of identity, of choice, of who he truly was. And as the warriors bowed once more, Daniel felt no pride, only the weight of chains. For the relic had awakened its power, and now the world demanded he use it, whether he wanted to or not. The truth revealed. The battlefield was silent after the rival clan withdrew, but silence did not mean peace. The ruins still whispered, the relic still pulsed, and Daniel still felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. The warriors bowed again, their voices low. The returned one, the lost one, the chosen. But Daniel's heart trembled, for he no longer knew if they were bowing to him, or to the shadow that lived inside the relic. That night, he could not sleep. The relic glowed at his side, its light breathing like fire. Each flicker of its glow carried images into his mind, visions of the lost one, visions of conquest, betrayal, and burning worlds. Daniel pressed his hands over his eyes, whispering, "I am not him, I won't be him." But the visions grew stronger, as if the relic was pushing him to accept its truth. At last, Daniel rose and walked into the ruins alone, the moonlight spilling over broken stone and shattered towers. The golden-marked warrior followed at a distance, silent, watchful, knowing the young human was reaching the edge of something greater than war. Daniel stopped at the heart of the battlefield, where the ground was scorched black. He raised the relic, its light bursting into the night, and the ruins trembled as if they remembered. Then a voice came, not from the warriors, not from the wind, but from within the relic itself, deep and commanding, filled with both sorrow and rage. "You carry my weapon, you carry my memory, you carry me." Daniel's breath shook, his eyes wide. "No, I'm Daniel, I'm not you." The voice thundered. "You cannot deny destiny. I built empires. I commanded armies. I was king. And through you, I will rise again." Memories that were not as poured into his mind. Battles, victories, betrayals, a crown of fire. Daniel staggered, falling to his knees, clutching his head. "Stop, stop. I'm not your vessel." The relic's glow flared brighter, the spear humming with violent power. The voice pressed harder. "They bow because they remember me. Not you, they whisper my name. Not yours, you are nothing without me." But Daniel's heart fought back. He remembered his home, his family, his quiet life before this cursed battlefield. He whispered, "I don't need to be you, I don't need to be a king, I just need to be me." The relic shook in his grip, resisting, the ruins trembling with the weight of its fury. The golden-marked warrior stepped forward, shouting, "You must choose. Either you surrender to him, or you break the chain. The relic cannot hold both." Daniel looked at the relic, glowing like a star in his hands, alive with power, alive with hunger. He saw the faces of the warriors kneeling, saw their fear, their hope, their belief. He realized then that the prophecy was not about the relic, not about the lost one. It was about the choice of the one who carried it, the one who could break the cycle. With trembling hands, Daniel raised the spear high, his voice shaking but firm. "I am not the lost one. I am not your king. I am Daniel, and I choose my own path." The relic screamed in his mind, the voice of the lost one raging, "You are nothing without me." Daniel shouted back, "Then I would rather be nothing than become you." And with all his strength, he drove the spear into the ground. Light exploded across the battlefield. The ruins cracked, the ground shook. The relic's glow split into shards of fire, scattering into the air like falling stars. The voice of the lost one roared, then faded, dissolving into silence. Daniel fell to his knees, the spear now only a stick again, plain and lifeless. The warriors gasped, some in awe, some in fear, none understanding what they had just witnessed. The golden-marked warrior stepped forward, his eyes wide but steady. He bowed deeply, his voice strong. Not the lost one, but something greater, a man who broke destiny itself. Slowly, one by one, the warriors followed, bowing not to prophecy, not to legend, but to the human who had chosen his own truth. Daniel's chest rose and fell, his body weak, his mind heavy, but his heart lighter than ever before. He